Hi, my name is Mark Hieronymus, and I work with Trout Unlimited Alaska program. I'm based out of Juneau, Alaska, where I've lived for the last 25 years. One of the things that I do with Trout Unlimited is I work on the fish habitat project. And I slap mosquitoes, apparently, because there's a lot of them out this spring. The fish habitat project is an effort to identify and document anadromous fish habitat. By anadromous, I mean fish that start their life in freshwater and then migrate out to the ocean and then migrate back to freshwater to spawn. So all the Pacific salmon, steelhead, some cutthroat trout, some dolly varden are anadromous as well. Today, I'm out in my office, the beautiful Tongass National Forest, and this is my subject. This little stream right here doesn't look like much, but it supports a pretty good population of juvenile salmon right now. This is great rearing habitat for small anadromous fish. It connects down to a main stem river that has a really good salmon run, and some spawn right here in this section, and then this area provides kind of a nursery for them before they go out to sea. It's really important to document these habitats and make sure that the state of Alaska, particularly the Department of Fish and Game, knows about these places, because if the department doesn't know about them, then they're not given the conservation measures afforded by the state's Anadromous Fish Act. And so it's very important to go out and find these areas and make sure that all the habitat is cataloged with the state. And it may surprise you that there's probably 50% of the salmon habitat in the state of Alaska remains undocumented. The Fish and Game just doesn't know about it. And so that's the drive of our project, is to make sure that these areas don't go unnoticed or overlooked anymore. We need to make sure that they get the conservation measures they deserve. If you'd like to hear or see more about this program, you can check us out on the web at americansalmonforest.org. The link will come up right here. And if it's something that you feel like you'd like to help out with, we've also got an easy how-to guide that'll get you started making citizen science observations while you're stomping around out in the woods or fishing out in your favorite stream. So make sure you check that link out, and we'll see you soon.
My name is Kayla, and I work for Trout Unlimited Alaska. I'm their Southeast Alaska Outreach Coordinator. I'm based in Juneau, Alaska, which happens to be the state's capital, if you didn't know that, and it's also right in the middle of the Tongass National Forest, which is the largest national forest in the U.S. Juneau is also where I was born and raised, so I live and breathe Southeast Alaska. Growing up here, I think I lived the Alaskan dream, you know? I grew up hunting and fishing and camping and hiking and biking and just about everything you can imagine, all in the Tongass. This area is definitely near and dear to my heart, and it's where I hope to live for the rest of my life. So there's one overlying theme in Southeast Alaska, and that theme is salmon. From community to industry and people, salmon is really what drives us. Here in Southeast Alaska, we have 3 major watersheds that make up the biggest salmon rivers and the biggest salmon producing rivers in Southeast Alaska. Those rivers are the Taku River, which is right outside Juneau. We have the Stikine River, which is outside of Wrangell, and the Unik River outside of Ketchikan. Now, as I just said, those 3 rivers are the largest salmon producing rivers in Southeast Alaska, so that's pretty major. They also produce 80% of the king salmon populations in Southeast Alaska, so that's just a little bit more major. These 3 rivers, the Taku, the Stikine, and the Unik, also have one major thing in common, and that is the fact that these 3 rivers, their headwaters lie in British Columbia, Canada, and they end here in Southeast Alaska in the US. And so because these rivers start in BC and they end in the US, they are therefore transboundary rivers. So these transboundary rivers, right now, British Columbia is in the middle of a mine boom, which is all fine and dandy, except for the fact that British Columbia has much less and much more lax mine regulations than we do here in the US. And there's no assurances between the two nations, between the US and between Canada, to say that if something goes wrong on one side of the border, that we're not left on the other, hands up in the air, not knowing what to do. So Trout Unlimited is working to create a binding agreement between these two nations, between BC and between the US, that ensures both the US and BC that these shared resources are not harmed and that they're protected for future generations.
Hi, my name is Jenny and I work with Trout Unlimited in Anchorage, and today I want to talk about the TOVOS National Forest. The TOVOS makes up most of the Southeast Alaska Panhandle, and it has amazing hunting and fishing and hiking and outdoor recreation possibilities. So much so that those industries provide about $2 billion to the regional economy and about a quarter of the jobs in the region. And that's why Trout Unlimited has worked to back a proposal called the TOVOS 77, where scientists and stakeholders from around the region came together and identified the 77 most important areas on the forest for fish production. And we've been working to make sure that those areas are conserved so that the fisheries on the forest stay healthy. But if you've been following the news lately, you might have heard the term roadless. And the roadless debate is really about what we as Alaskans and Americans want for the future of the TOVOS. And to fully understand it, we have to go back in time a little bit. So subsidized logging used to dominate the region, but then the industry collapsed and Alaskans were left with destroyed landscapes and damaged salmon habitat. And we've spent the last few decades cleaning that up. And then in 2001, the roadless rule passed, and this protected 60 million acres from industrial clear-cut logging. However, there's still some big 800-year-old trees in the TOVOS that loggers want to get their hands on. So last year, Alaska's Governor Dunleavy and President Trump backed a deal that would remove those roadless protections for 9 million acres of the TOVOS. This is a big problem because the rule is not only working on the TOVOS, it's very popular. And it was set up to be flexible, so the communities within the forest can request exemptions to allow their energy needs or community infrastructure projects to move forward. And when they've made those requests, the Forest Service has granted them. For that reason, Trout Unlimited is working to make sure that the roadless rule stays in place because it's working to conserve the habitat that the fish and wildlife of the region rely on, that provide jobs, and we're working to put those conservation measures in place so that people from around the world can continue to come visit the TOVOS and enjoy it for fishing, hunting, and recreation for many generations to come.
To learn more about the transboundary mines, the Alaska-specific roadless rule, or the Anadromous Waters Catalog and citizen science, please visit americasalmonforest.org. And from all of us, I'd like to thank you today for joining us and learning a little bit more about Southeast Alaska and what you can do to help salmon populations for future generations to come.